if elections are about narratives rather than the numbers, or is it in addition to, or whatever? If the main thing of elections is the narratives, why are we so pulled into talking about numbers? And this is what I want to suggest. I want to suggest that the problem is not even the numbers and the results. It's the psychology, that the hysteria that is created because there's something to win. When there's something to win, people lose their minds. They lose their minds, they start focusing on the numbers, they trash everything and sacrifice everything because of those numbers. And that's what we do at elections. We are told to focus on the numbers, and we trash our relationships, we kill each other, we abuse one another because of numbers. So this is why we are unable to talk, soberly about elections, because we are already hyped. Our emotions are already hyped, and we want the thrill of winning. We want the thrill of a number. It's like a horse bet. And in fact, actually, there was a time I even said that Kenyans go to the polls like they are going to bet. You know, Kenyans, in fact, when you hear them calculating, so-and-so can't win because so-and-so will get more, whatever. It's betting. And then we calculate, instead of going to cast our vote because of what we believe, we go to cast our vote with the winning horse. So just the way you go to bet, you bet based on who you think will win. That's why that's how we go to vote. We go to cast our vote with the horse that we think might win, so that we can get the thrill of my candidate won. I have never in my life voted for a candidate who won. Never. Oh, yeah, never. Because I've always told myself I'm voting for what I believe in. It's a very bourgeois, of course I'm being bourgeois and intellectual about it, but I'm not gambling. I can't go and gamble because I'm not going for a thrill to win. I'm going to say this is what I want. And I guess that's why I never get what I want, because nobody I vote for ever wins. So that's what I want to talk about, the thrill of the win. So that's number one. Why are elections so divisive? It's not the ethnicity, it's the thrill of the victory. And people wanting to be on the side that wins. I don't know how we can stop that. Okay, the second thing is the theater. Like when you look at how this tyranny of numbers was believed, it was a theater. That you have political scientists, political analysts, then you have a dispassionate guy with a ring on the finger and, you know, library behind him, and, you know, in a suit. Then he's throwing around numbers that you can't understand. It's theater. It's drama. It's supposed to help you visualize and be emotionally drawn to the argument. And so that, and then you see, like this video, the second video I played, the concern was the numbers. But actually what the real refuting we should have done was to say, why are you saying it now? Why are you predicting something as if it has happened? Why are you talking in the present when you're pushing a narrative for the future? You're trying to come up with an explanation of why Jubilee will win. We have not yet voted. How did you decide that they will win? It means, in my opinion, it was already known, and now they were cooking up a narrative beforehand, so that when the victory, so-called victory happens, you just accept based on, hey, I tell you. The other thing I've already said, the third thing that was a problem with this whole conversation was that it was preparing for violence. Maybe not consciously, but it was preparing the ground for violence. Because when you say that people are going to vote according to ethnic groups, then you're giving people a license to use violence to force their ethnic groups to vote in one way, or to force out ethnic groups which you think will not vote for you. A form of violence. I mean, you're inviting violence with that kind of rhetoric. Because, yeah, ethnic voting requires violence. Even if it's not physical violence, you have to blackmail people, make them feel they don't belong, you know, use all kinds of blackmail to prove that Kenyans will vote on ethnic lines. Then the fourth thing is what I've already talked about, it's epistemic closure. So many phrases were made which were not subject to, it's almost like it's a done deal. We can't talk about it. If we said it is believable, we must apply. And the last thing, apart from saying that it is about the thrill of winning, which I think it's a psychosis, it's also about, or maybe, no, let me bring it up another time. Yeah, so it's the thrill of winning, the theater, the dramatics, the invitation to violence, the epistemic closure, and the epistemic closure. Those are the things that make elections so divisive and explosive in Kenya. How are we going to tell the public this? Okay, imagine now, we have to find a way of making the public understand that it's not about the numbers. And it's not about, you know, how are the votes counted, what is collected and all that. It's about, it's not just about that, it's about the narratives that we tell before and the way they are performed, especially on the media. And most of all, the psychosis of winning. The psychosis of winning is so damaging, it destroys lives. It destroys lives in elections, it destroys lives in exams, it destroys lives in money. People steal so that they can be ahead, so that they can have the bigger house than the other person. They must win. It's destroying our lives. And that is something that we need to question. Must everything be about winning? And yes, okay, now I've remembered why I wanted to bring my last point. Malignant narcissism. Let me just write up here the term. Narcissism. Oh, in fact, let me just share. This thrill to win is linked to a neurosis called malignant narcissism. Let me just share the notes. Okay, so you can see what happens when people are so tied to winning. This is what happens to their souls and to their emotions. They start to see the world in black and white and seeing others as friend or enemy. Or they seek to win at all costs and generally leave a great amount of pain. And that's what happens, isn't it? Every time there's a win, there's pain. And so what happens is that after the thrill of winning has gone, the people who caused the pain start coming back and saying, oh, okay, you know, can we lessen the pain for you? Maybe we can throw you a few crumbs so that you feel less pain. But the pain never goes. It never goes because for you to have something to give back, you had to cause injury. And then they don't care about the pain they cause others. And they may even enjoy it and experience it as empowering. So you see people dance, okay, I wouldn't say that they are rejoicing the pain of others, but they basically don't care. You know, like during exams, me, when I see the media celebrating 2, 5, 10 people who passed, then I'm asking, how do the 600,000 who fail, how do you think they feel? But, you know, and that's almost 1 million kids who are going to grow up with that pain. What are we telling them? And nobody bothers to think about that. And then the next one, they will do what it takes to prevent themselves from loss, inconvenience, or failing to get what they want. And that's actually where our problem is with elections. People are willing to do anything to prevent loss. So they will steal from us for 5 years. They will throw us, they will incite us against one another, because for them, nothing is worth them losing. And what are the symptoms? As you can see, this is a psychosis. They are preoccupied with fantasies about their own beauty, brilliance, success, and power. So they see themselves from a very idealistic point of view. They can't handle contradiction. And then they kick tantrums when they don't get what they want. They take advantage of others. They're overly concerned about how they look. And that's why we are seeing a rise of interest in PR. Because the PR people are supposed to help everybody look good. Then they expect to be treated as superior. We are seeing a lot of that today, these days. Lack of empathy. They think very highly of themselves. They overestimate their self and their ability to self-regulate. They have no remorse about hurting others, no interest in apologizing unless they benefit. So that's why you see, even after a victory, then we have the next 5 years of trying to pacify people because it benefits a few. And then there's an attitude of deserving the best of everything. There's a tendency to monopolize conversations or mistreat. So what happens actually, even like when you look at those who go to elite schools because they passed exams, they come out of the school system like this, monopolizing and mistreating those who they think you didn't go to the right school. What are you saying? So they have a hidden insecurity and weak sense of self that is obvious, and nobody ever points it out because we are being so mesmerized by victories and winnings. And then there's a tendency to blame others for their own bad behavior. So the problem is always somebody else, it is never them. And me, I would say that this is the problem, and this is why we fight. Because it's a psychosis. Our elections elections these days are full of narcissistic fellows like Trump, narratives that are epistemically shut down, and a high emotion content which is driven by the thrill to win. And no, we don't have a conversation about who is winning what. And then we get surprised when people start fighting. We say, oh, it's because you're intolerant. No, it's because our emotions were whipped up. And so when you raise expectations, then people drop suddenly. You have to have an equilibrium outlet for that emotional sort of. When you're high and then you hit low, you need to compensate for that emotional drop. And that's where the violence comes in. It's cathartic. But that's not the kind of catharsis we want, because it's a damaging catharsis, and then we have to deal with the trauma after the catharsis. And yet catharsis is supposed to heal. So that's my rant about our elections. My search for those notes on malignant narcissism, it came from a video by Lewis Gordon. He's a philosopher. He was talking about racism, actually. And he was saying, if you look at the characteristics of narcissism, this malignant narcissism, it's equal to white supremacy, word for word. People with giving people an inflated sense of self, not being able to cope with contradiction, all that. That's what racism is. Wanting to get their way at any cost, it doesn't matter who loses. That's actually racism in a nutshell. if you look at it, and all forms of supremacy. That's how they operate. Okay, on a more positive note, of course, what are our options? I think, first of all, the first option is we need to be more analytical about the problem of electoral violence. I think we are being very simplistic when we are saying it's tribalism, when it's a myriad of issues. You know, the idea of the thrill of winning, the emotional, what is it when you swing back and forth? The fact that there's epistemic closure, we are not allowed to debate. Those are the outside, they're not peripheral, but they are the other issues that we need to talk about when we are considering elections. And maybe a member of the public might not be used to this kind of analysis, so it would not, whatever. But we have been to school. We need to be the ones providing some more clarity on some of these things other than accepting what a guy says on a couch. Actually, because he was interviewed on TV in a green tie, now we say, actually, this must be it. We educated people are being irresponsible, and we need to start being responsible. So that's one thing, that we need to expand the area of conversation and not be just stuck to epistemic closures that are done by the mainstream media and well-connected analysts. Then we need to start asking ourselves, and this is not for this class, of course, but now you go and plant the question in people's minds. Can you have elections without these high-stakes emotional baggage? How would you do that? This is the response of one community in Mexico, which I'm just going to play just now.
While the rest of Mexico celebrated the victory of Andrés Manuel López Obrador, this small town went about its business. That's because elections are banned here.
No, aquí no llegan las casillas. De hecho, se ha llegado a decomisar propaganda partidista y le hemos dado a saber a todo, no sé, a todo el estado, a todo México, que aquí pues no son bien recibidos, pues ningún tipo de proselitismo.
Cheran sits in the northwest portion of Michoacán. The state is overrun by violent crime and political corruption. But not here. Cheran's 20,000 residents solved those problems by kicking out politicians, cops, and its mayor.
Todo lo malo que sucedía antes del 2011, era pues gracias a los partidos políticos, porque pues tal vez por obtener el poder y eso se corrompían y incluso pues vendían a nuestra comunidad con el crimen organizado y demás.
Strict rules forbid political parties and campaigning within the town limits. Even motorists entering Cheran have to remove party bumper stickers.
Hemos visto y estamos viendo que se logra muchísimo más en todos los aspectos si dejamos fuera a los partidos políticos. Entonces, pues sí me gustaría que la gente de todo el país o de la región o, pues sí, mínimo, ¿no?, del estado, se pusiera a pensar en eso de que pues nos puede ir mucho mejor sin los partidos políticos. O sea que no los necesitamos para nada y yo creo que eso ya está comprobado aquí en Cheran.
Cheran also hasn't had a murder, kidnapping, or disappearance in 7 years. Minor offenses like theft, drunk driving, and disorderly conduct are dealt with by imposing community service. One way the town curtailed crime was limiting access. 3 entry checkpoints are staffed by guards with assault rifles and body armor. They're part of a homegrown patrol system in charge of protecting the town. That includes Andrés Fabián.
Los más importantes para mí serían, primero en cuestiones de seguridad. Se ha logrado pues digamos que eliminar los delitos que antes se cometían aquí, como lo que viene siendo pues el crimen organizado o delincuencia organizadas.
The town's transformation began in 2011 after a group of women decided to drive away illegal loggers.
Pues yo me siento bien. ¿Por qué? Porque, bueno, no nomás las mujeres, porque participamos mujeres, pero los hombres también participaron. Pero los que empezaron, las mujeres, ¿verdad? Y no uno nomás, pues, sino todo el pueblo. Todo el pueblo se juntó.
Witnesses rang the town bells to alert the community, and this set off an uprising that became known as the chiming.
Y si no fueron las campanas, no se comunicó ni se dijo, vamos a hacer esto, vamos a hacer el otro, no se dijo, no se dio organizado. O sea, fue, ¿cómo te voy a decir? Fue una sorpresa.
Up until this point, the town had been overrun by the loggers, who harassed and threatened residents.
Bien quemado, todo destrozado el monte, no dejaban ya más subir a uno los malos, por ahí les salían encapuchados y no, viera, salían con sus buenas armas.
Se sufrían varios aspectos porque ya la gente esta que venía y se robaba pues nuestra madera, empezaban a hacer otro tipo de actividades ilícitas. A las personas que trataban de defender así por cuenta propia el bosque, pues a muchos los desaparecieron, a muchos los asesinaron, los levantaron y nunca se supo hasta ahorita, nunca se supo ya más de esas personas.
Today, Cheran is governed by its residents with strict rules and guidelines based on their indigenous Purepecha roots.
Se hicieron varios borradores de cómo formar la estructura de gobierno. Sabíamos también que de nuestros antepasados ya se gobernaban de esta manera. Entonces, esa fue la manera en que nosotros iniciamos a organizarnos para tener esta forma de gobierno nuevamente.
Each block in Cheran discusses their issues at a community bonfire. Then they elect geris, or representatives like Enerino Santa Clara, to bring these issues to the General Assembly.
Desde nuestras fogatas, desde nuestros barrios, desde las barricadas y con la ronda comunitaria. Pero normalmente todos nos damos la protección. En ese sentido, es donde vemos pues unos avances grandes, ¿no? Y exitosos para nosotros.
The community has also been slowly restoring the forest and nursing tree seedlings in a community garden.
A mí me gustaría que nuestra gente, nuestras futuras generaciones fueran aprendiendo precisamente esta forma de vida y que lo fueran poniendo en práctica y sobre todo que tuviéramos ese amor, se pudiera decir, por la naturaleza.
Cheran has become an example for other communities across Mexico. In 2018, 32 towns boycotted the presidential elections. Others are now looking to replicate its success against crime and corruption.
Hay una frase que personas externas a la comunidad vienen y nos la dicen, que se podría cheranizar a México o cuando menos a Michoacán. Entonces, ¿qué nos dan a entender con eso? Que todas las poblaciones pueden hacerlo. Lo que está haciendo Cheran, de rechazar y pues de no dejar que los partidos políticos se apoderen de los recursos.
Crime comes from that emotional high because criminals are people who want to be the richest, who want to win, look nice, drive flashy cars better than anyone else. And the way they do that is by stealing. And if they steal and they are fought against, they will need to kill whoever they are stealing from, either to prevent resistance or even to just scare people. So that's the common ground, the common emotional ground between elections and crime. That even criminals are like politicians, they want to win at any cost. And any cost means stealing from the public, from people, and killing them if they have to. So in a sense, criminals and politicians have the same MO. They're in the same boat, same WhatsApp group. Because for them, they want to win and win at any cost. So when you throw away, when you do away with elections, you remove that emotional need to win at any cost. So once the politicians go, even the criminals go. And it's not just the criminals and the politicians, but even the public starts to see there's another way of organizing life other than from people winning and losing. We can cooperate instead. Instead of competing and going to a ballot and then saying, yeah, our side won, why don't we just cooperate and resolve together the problems that we are expecting the winner to solve, and which he never solves anyway. So what they've done is to say we need a new logic of governance. We don't want winning and losing. We want cooperation to solve the problems that we have together. And that's the kind of thinking we need to be doing now, you people who are using your money getting an education. That's where you need to be taking Kenyans. How do we replace the logic of winning and losing for governance? How do we get cooperation back so that we stop being against one another, competing against one another? And yet this is not a race, it's our lives. It's deep. It was the forest that made them come to action. That reverence for environment, we don't have it. We don't yet have it. I don't know. I think partly because, I don't know whether this was done in Mexico, but for Africans, we were told that our reverence for the environment is witchcraft and animism, that we are worshiping trees. That's what we were told. And yet Jesus is the person to worship. So I think that's what happened. We were cut off this spiritual connection to our environment by Christianity. So that's why, you know, the polluting of the rivers, the cutting down of forests, it doesn't make us say, hiya, you know, we need to take drastic action. It doesn't bother us. It goes back to the narratives of progress and technology. And actually, we didn't mention the building up of concrete buildings as a sign of maendeleo. You know, when there's tarmac and big concrete buildings, then we say to men, you know, tumepata maendeleo. But that's not maendeleo if we are going to destroy the environment. So you see, we have, and also, okay, this one is not said much anymore, but in that idea of technology and progress, there was an inbuilt hostility to the environment. People would say things like human beings need to conquer their environment. You see, the victory, you know, the narcissism, you know, we look at the environment as something to conquer and beat. So we've now seen green spaces as not part of ourselves. So we beat it down, cut down trees, dig up places and put concrete there, and then, or tarmac, and then we say that is hiyo ni maendeleo. So, and that is now what feeds into, it's the same, by the way, it's the same WhatsApp group with the elections of winning and gambling and exams. It's the same WhatsApp group. You know, this thing of I should win no matter what it costs anybody else. So what these Mexican cultures have done, and I want to thank you for pointing it out because it's true, that the green is sort of an actor. It's the one that inspired the action. So we don't, because of this winner take all, you know, the reason why people like that fight against the environment is because the environment doesn't speak back immediately. So you see, if you come and you cut forests and whatever, you don't suffer, the environment doesn't speak back immediately. Of course, it will speak back later when there are floods, drought, and all those. But because of that thrill of winning, you won't think that, you know, what have I done? you know, what will happen if there are no trees. You don't have to think of that because you're the winner. You won. And you have the victory, and everybody else doesn't matter, especially the environment doesn't matter. So it's all the same WhatsApp group, from elections to exams to crime, to destruction of the environment, and it's controlled by a narrative that numbers matter and that we must win according to the numbers. That stories don't matter, context doesn't matter, what matters is the numbers. It's so powerful. So it's a narrative that runs across public life. You know, everyone will say, did you get, even, you know, there's sometimes I just feel like laughing when they're talking about when there's an interview for a government job, then we are told, oh, the best 3 candidates with the highest score got this. I'm just like, ha, ha, ha. Those numbers have nothing to do with anything. It doesn't say anything. And the numbers are what? You're scoring people's certificates and the way people answer the questions at the interview. But there's a whole other life to them that you don't know until you hire the person. And then you discover, hey, this is not what we thought we were getting. And that's why even the ruling elite don't have respect for those numbers. Because they know the numbers lie, but they keep telling us the numbers don't lie. They lie. They don't say everything.